We're going to look at one more area of sessions. On this one, we're not looking at a database. Again, all we're going to be able to work with are arrays within the code itself. Now remember, sessions are the way we have of passing information from the server back to the client. Every time we initiate any type of browser activity on a site, we start a survey, or excuse me, a session which has the session ID assigned. Now look at the one we have here. We have one to where on the entrance page we have a web survey, and it says start the survey. And again, this is based on the fact that I haven't taken the survey yet. So I'd have to know whether I'd have to check to see where I've taken it yet and what question I have stopped on. Okay, so on here it talks about every time you click on one, there's a next question, and you select one, click on next question. The meet expectations is always automatically selected. So each window or each question, and there's 5 questions, will come up like this. When you're completely done, it stores all of the responses inside of a session for each question. When we get done, it displays all the information from our session and variables, and we have to remember that now that we've taken it, we're going to have to clear out the browser history and the cache so that if we wanted to rerun it and retest it, that it would start the survey all over again. You might want to make it so that you can rerun this without it stopping you on the web survey with all the responses. Okay. Now, when I go look at the code for this, we start off with our web survey, PHP, and remember all this is in htdocs, and here's our session start. We also put all of our questions in an array. Now, in order to be able to determine that I'm at the end of the array and I've asked all the questions, I have to create a count. So I can count all the questions and make sure that I'll work and see what particular question I'm on. So the initial page, I go through here and say, okay, if my session current question, the current question that I'm on, has already been set, and it's greater than 0. Well, actually an and, it's a nested. But if it's greater than 0 and I've already got the response, then I need to make sure that I post the response for the current question to my array of responses for my session. Remember, I have 5 responses, and within the responses, what's the question for that response? And every time I go through, I add one more to my current question. So even though we've talked about arrays not having an index, it's an associative. We're still using associative, but this actually has a number in it. Okay, else we reset it to 0. Then we go in and display all the information, and we want to make sure that if our current question is 0 on this part, then I can go back in again and start with my HTML. I got to make sure and go back in the PHP. So if it's equal to 0, I do this. Else, if it's greater than the question count, that means I've already completed. Okay. So either I'm going to take it or I'm completed. Now on here, I've got to go through, and on this I've just created a message body so I can use a string to display, and I want to go through and show each of my session responses, because this is about whether I have already answered because of this. So it just goes through and displays it, and again I have an array of my responses, and I'm going to do all of them. Index is my individual, and I go through and I display every single one of them. Okay, so on my survey questions, here's the index. So I'm using this really as like an index within my array. But I've also, remember, got to tell it that I have my response after every question. So I have my array, and then I have my responses that go with each one. Okay, I'm building it. And then I go through and echo, and there's some email address and information. Now, if I haven't taken it and I'm not redisplaying all the responses, then I need to, on my question, display my next question. All right, so there's my section, current question number. Display it inside the survey questions. I display the next one. And if my current question is less than, again, I have to go in and build my form. Because remember, I have my form here, exceeds, meets expectation, all that information. And again, remember, we're using these, a session is just like any other storage facility that we can put our variables in. It's just that we also have the storage that goes back and forth between client server. Okay, so I fill all that out. I build my form, make sure that it's not a start the survey. I'm actually on a question. And if I've finished the question, if it's the last one, if it's number 5, then I want to make sure it's finished, else it's going to say next question on it. And I'm just kind of displaying the session ID just so you can see what the session ID is that's getting passed back and forth outside the one that I've got hidden. Okay? Now, this, again, is looped around, and when I get done, there's the form. When I click on it, again, on this form, there's my input type and my submit. It's going to go back and run the web survey all over again so I can get the next question, and it's all based on current question number. Okay, so I'll go back and start the all. Now this state information is just the information that's displayed at the very beginning if I want to bring it up, and I can click on web survey, or I can look at the source of the code. It's interesting when we go pull these up. Now that we've went through this, and again, I went through this very quickly because we've already used sessions, and we worked with sessions and arrays. Again, we worked when it was the current, or excuse me, the cart. This is just the variable information in my session. And it's a numeric value that I can use with my responses, more or less, array for the current question. Okay? And then I increment whenever I get through with one, and I have to make sure that the display is correct. I want you to try and add 2 more questions to it and alter your page so it will have 7 questions. Make them kind of the same as the ones we already have. If you want to make a smaller one, that's fine, but it would be just as easy to copy and paste and make some more or 2 more questions out of this. And again, make it work so that I can retake the quiz. You might want to put a retake on the survey so that way I can go through and completely redo the quiz and resave my responses. Start from scratch. Remember how to destroy and start from scratch? So you'd have to go through and destroy the information so I could start from scratch on it. I want you to try that, and we'll talk about it next class. Good luck.